Have you ever sensed a quiet but undeniable shift in your life? As we move through our late 70s and beyond, subtle spaces begin to appear, not just in our routines but within our relationships, our daily rhythms, even our sense of belonging in the world. These shifts are not signs of decline. They are gentle invitations asking us to slow down, to listen, and to live more deeply. Today we will explore 8 quiet but powerful gaps that many older adults encounter. These are the spaces that form when familiar faces fade, when busyness gives way to stillness, and when the world seems to move just a little farther away. And yet, within each gap, there is hidden meaning, an opportunity to grow, to rediscover ourselves, and to live with greater peace and inner strength. Stay with me. Understanding these tender spaces may help you not only find comfort but also embrace this chapter of life with fresh purpose, resilience, and a deeper sense of connection. Let's begin gently together. Number 1. The growing gap between outer change and inner constancy. As the seasons of life unfold into our late 70s and 80s, another subtle but profound gap emerges, the widening space between the rapid changes we witness in the outer world and the steady, unwavering constancy we feel inside. You may look around and notice how everything seems to change faster than ever before. Technology evolves overnight. Neighborhoods transform. Social norms shift. Even language itself bends into new forms. The world you once built your life within seems to be reshaping itself at a dizzying pace. And yet, within you, something remains timeless. At the core of your being, there is a thread that has not changed. A quiet place where your truest values, your deepest joys, your most sacred memories still live, untouched by the rush outside. This gap, the space between outer change and inner constancy, can sometimes feel jarring. It may bring moments of dislocation, even sadness, as you watch beloved traditions fade or see familiar landscapes altered beyond recognition. But wise souls come to see this gap not as a loss, but as a precious reminder. The world may change its shape, but the heart knows its own way home. It reminds you that your identity has never been tied to trends, nor your worth measured by the standards of a restless world. It reminds you that peace, kindness, loyalty, and quiet courage do not go out of fashion. They deepen. It invites you to become a living bridge between what was, what is, and what still matters most. Consider Margaret, who at 86 still starts every morning the same way she did decades ago, with a simple prayer, a cup of tea, and a moment of gratitude. Her neighborhood has changed. The world has shifted. But her morning ritual remains, anchoring her in something the world cannot take away. This is the gift of inner constancy. No matter how much the world outside changes, you are still you. Your heart still knows how to love. Your spirit still knows how to hope. Your wisdom still lights the way quietly for those willing to see. And so, while the outer world may swirl with change, you carry within you a center of gravity, a steadiness that is rare and deeply needed. Number 2. The growing absence of close peers. There's a particular kind of loneliness that arrives not with silence, but with the loss of shared history. As you move through your late 70s and into your 80s, this kind of loneliness becomes more familiar, a quiet ache that settles in the spaces once filled by the people who knew your life from the inside out. It's not only about losing a spouse or immediate family. It's about the steady fading of close friends, longtime neighbors, and familiar faces at the church pew or the local cafe. The ones who knew your stories without you needing to tell them. The ones who understood the rhythm of your laughter, the subtle meanings tucked behind a glance or a sigh. As the years pass, these friends don't disappear all at once. It happens gradually. A phone call that once came every Tuesday afternoon simply stops. A favorite chair at the weekly card game remains empty. A name that used to light up your voicemail is now a quiet memory. And one day you realize something profound. You are becoming one of the last keepers of a chapter that no one else quite remembers. Psychologists call this the compression of social circles. It's not that you're alone in the world. It's that those who shared your beginnings, the ones who helped mirror your identity, have grown fewer. Their absence isn't loud. It hums quietly in the background, present in every untold story, every familiar song that now brings a sting of memory instead of a smile. There are moments when this gap feels almost unbearable. When you tell a story and realize that no one in the room shares the memory. When a song drifts through the air and you instinctively think of someone only to remember they are gone. When the people who once reflected your life back to you with nods, laughter, and shared understanding are no longer there, it can feel as if pieces of yourself are fading too. But here is what wise souls have learned. Even when the circle narrows, you remain whole. You carry those friendships within you. You hold their laughter, their advice, their gentle presence like invisible companions who walk beside you still. And while those bonds cannot be replaced in the exact same way, new connections can still grow. Maybe they are different, maybe they are lighter, but they are no less real. Consider Gerald, who at 84 had lost 3 of his closest friends in just 2 short years. For a time, he withdrew, asking himself, what's the point of showing up if the people I used to meet are no longer there? But then, nudged lovingly by his granddaughter, he joined a local storytelling group. There, surrounded by younger faces, he shared tales of days they never lived, but listened to with wide eyes and open hearts. Slowly, the emptiness eased, not because the old friends were forgotten, but because new bridges were built between generations. The gap of missing peers never disappears completely. It becomes part of the landscape you walk each day. Yet by honoring those old friendships with your living stories, with your laughter, with your continued presence, you breathe new life into their memory. You keep their light burning for others to see. And that, dear friend, is not just healing. That is legacy. If you feel the echoes of old friendships stirring in your heart, I invite you to leave a comment with the number 2 below. Your story matters. Your memories matter. And by sharing even a small part of them, you keep the beautiful tapestry of your life alive for generations to come. If you haven't yet, I warmly welcome you to subscribe and join our circle, where your presence is treasured. Number 3. The spiritual gap that asks what still matters. In the quiet stretch of your late 70s and into your 80s, another kind of gap begins to open, not around you but within you. It is the widening space between what once seemed important and what truly matters now. This isn't necessarily about religion, though for some it may be. It is deeper than doctrines. It is about meaning, about legacy, about the traces of yourself you will leave behind, not in possessions but in memories, in values, in the silent presence you shared with those you loved. You may find yourself reflecting on questions that once seemed distant, almost theoretical. What was it all for? Did I love well? Did I make people feel seen, cherished, understood? Did I live with integrity, or did I sometimes move on autopilot, forgetting how sacred each day truly was? These aren't questions of regret. They are invitations, gentle calls to deepen, to turn inward with tenderness and honesty. This spiritual gap rarely announces itself. It doesn't make headlines or fill conversations at dinner parties. It is there instead in the softest moments, in the quiet realization that fewer and fewer people remember the child you once were, in the ache of seeing the world spin faster as you move more slowly, in the silence that asks not for busyness but for meaning. And the wise among us understand, this is not a gap to be feared. It is a sacred space waiting to be filled with intention. The journey is not over. But the steps ahead are less about outward achievements and more about inward truths. It is no longer about accumulating but about distilling, peeling back the noise to reveal the essence of who you are. This is the season when small actions become sacred. Listening fully when someone speaks, saying thank you with genuine warmth, offering wisdom rather than opinions, reaching across old misunderstandings to heal, leaving no kindness unspoken, no "I love you" held back. The spiritual gap is not a void. It is a mirror showing you where your soul still longs to grow, even as your body may grow tired. And this stage of life, contrary to what the world sometimes suggests, is not a fading epilogue. It is a final chapter of breathtaking honesty and beauty. By now you have lived long enough to know what truly matters, and what never really did. The greatest gift of this spiritual space is this. It invites you to let go not of life but of fear. Not of people but of pretense. To move through these final steps not with regret but with presence. To leave a fingerprint of love, wisdom, and quiet courage. One that even time itself will not erase. Number 4. The widening emotional distance with younger generations. As the years gently carry us into our late 70s and beyond, another kind of distance often makes itself quietly known. the emotional and cultural space that slowly widens between us and the younger generations. It's not a gap born of anger or neglect. In fact, in many families, love remains steady and strong. Yet love does not always translate into understanding. And often, it feels less like being forgotten and more like becoming invisible. You begin to notice it in small moments. Conversations around the table flow swiftly into worlds you barely recognize. Your grandchildren speak in rhythms and references that seem foreign, even though their laughter is still familiar. Your adult children, so busy in their whirling lives, seem to be caught up in a current that you no longer swim in. Their pace is rapid, their concerns are different, and your steady presence, once central to the family's daily orbit, now seems quietly, tenderly set aside. This shift is subtle at first, but over time it leaves a mark. It is not a wound of bitterness. It is the soft ache of feeling on the outside looking in. You may share the same room, the same meal, but not quite the same story anymore. The conversations have shifted toward things that didn't even exist when you were building your own life: social media, remote work, digital parenting. The wisdom you spent a lifetime gathering may no longer be the anchor they turn to. Sometimes you are not even asked. Not out of cruelty, but because they do not realize the treasure sitting right in front of them. And in that quiet, a strange kind of grief settles. A mourning not for lost years, but for a sense of relevance that no longer shines back from the faces you love. Many older adults carry this feeling silently. Speaking it aloud often risks being misunderstood, as complaint rather than as the gentle yearning for connection it truly is. Take the story of Eleanor, 82 years old, still bright and vibrant. She remembers a time when her phone would ring daily with calls from her children. These days it is mostly holiday greetings and occasional updates. Last month, her granddaughter visited, yet spent much of the afternoon scrolling her phone. Eleanor didn't grow angry, she understood. But afterward, she whispered with a soft smile tinged with sadness, "I felt like part of the furniture. Present but not engaged. This gap is no one's fault. It is simply part of the river of life as it flows onward." And the wisest among us do not waste their energy trying to force the river to turn. Instead, they learn to build bridges. Not by demanding the old ways be restored. Not by insisting that the young should slow down and return. But by stepping gently into the new world with an open heart. They ask questions instead of giving unsolicited advice. They adapt, learning to send a text instead of expecting a call, smiling as they decipher memes they would never have invented themselves. Above all, they remember the deeper truth. While the surface may change, love remains the bridge. If you reach out with curiosity, with patience, and with an open spirit, you will be surprised how often someone will meet you halfway. Connection may not look the same as it once did, but its essence, presence, understanding, love, endures. And in this evolving landscape you still belong. If this reflection speaks to your heart, I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment with the number 4 below to let me know you're walking this journey with us. And if you find these insights valuable, feel free to subscribe and turn on the little bell, so you won't miss the next conversations we'll share together. Your presence here is a true gift. Number 5. The silence in your calendar. Have you ever felt it? The unexpected stillness that begins to stretch across your days as you move deeper into your late 70s and beyond? It's more than just retiring from a career or no longer having work-related commitments. It's the quiet realization that fewer people are reaching out, that the calendar once crowded with meetings, family gatherings, and community events now sits open and waiting. Where once time felt like a river rushing by, now it pools into long, unclaimed hours. At first, this open space can feel like a precious gift. No more deadlines to chase. No more demands pulling at you from every direction. There's a sweetness to that freedom. Yet, for many older adults, that vastness can begin to feel less like liberation and more like an empty echo. Days drift by without appointments, without urgent reasons to rise and get ready. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the quietness begins to touch something deeper. A growing sense of disconnection, even invisibility. A sparse calendar is not just a logistical change. It's an emotional landscape shift. When others no longer regularly seek your time, whether children, former colleagues, or friends, it can feel as if the world continues to turn just slightly out of reach. Left unattended, This gap can quietly erode the sense of purpose that once anchored your days. Psychologists recognize this as a natural, though profound, transition in late life. The shift from being needed to simply being. For many decades, our value often feels tied to what we accomplish, what we build, solve, or contribute to the lives of others. When those familiar roles fade or fall away altogether, they leave behind a vast open field. And it's up to us to decide what new seeds we wish to plant. Consider the story of Harold, a 78-year-old retired architect. Once, he juggled projects across cities, led teams, traveled for conferences. After retiring and losing his lifelong partner, Harold woke up one day to realize there was no one waiting for his emails, no meetings on his calendar, no place he truly needed to be. At first, he relished the quiet mornings. But soon the silence grew heavy. Without new purposes, the empty hours seemed to stretch endlessly. Eventually, Harold understood something vital. If he didn't choose how to fill his days, the emptiness would choose for him. The good news is this gap isn't a dead end, it's an invitation. But bridging it doesn't happen by chance. It requires tenderness and conscious, loving action. It could be as simple as joining a local walking group, volunteering at the community library, setting a regular phone call with an old friend, or inviting a few neighbors for a monthly Sunday lunch. Small, steady rituals, woven with care into your days, carry a quiet but powerful message to your heart. I still matter. And this day, this beautiful, unrepeatable day, is still worth shaping. Number 6. The increasing separation from modern culture. There comes a moment, often somewhere in our late 70s or early 80s, when we pause, look around, and realize that the world we once moved through so naturally now feels unfamiliar. The songs playing on the radio no longer stir the same feelings. The conversations on television seem rushed, sharp, sometimes even jarring. The greetings, the fashion, even the humor, everything around us starts to feel like it belongs to someone else. For many older adults, this slow drifting away from the cultural current opens a quiet and tender gap. It's not just about music or slang. It's about something deeper, identity. Culture, after all, is the landscape in which we express love, friendship, grief, and joy. When that landscape shifts so dramatically, it can make you question where, or even if, you still belong. Psychologists have a name for this: cultural displacement. It's the subtle but profound feeling of being a foreigner in a land you never left. You walk the same streets, live in the same house, but everything, the restaurants, the advertisements, the small assumptions people make, feels a little less like it was made with you in mind. The world seems to spin faster, speak louder, and cherish different values than the ones you once held close. It's a disorienting feeling. You might find yourself missing the days when a handshake was a promise, when handwritten thank you cards were a small but sacred ritual, when songs told stories that lingered in your heart instead of just filling the air with sound. A part of you might yearn to keep up, to adapt, while another part quietly mourns the gentle, familiar world you once knew so well. But here's something that the wisest among us have discovered. The goal isn't to chase after every new trend. The goal is to remain rooted. The fashions and the technologies will keep changing as they always have. But the deeper values, the ones that shaped you, remain steadfast. Respect, kindness, depth, gratitude, faith. These are not relics of the past. They are the anchors that steady us in an ever-shifting sea. Take John, who at 72 years old, once laughed and said, "I don't understand TikTok. But when my grandson shows me a video that makes him laugh, I smile. Not because I get the joke, but because I still get him." That, dear friend, is the secret. You don't need to understand everything to stay connected. Presence matters more than fluency. The cultural gap may widen, but it does not diminish your worth. In fact, your perspective, rich with context, memory, and meaning, is more precious than ever. You offer a living memory to a world often moving too quickly to remember its own past. And by choosing with wisdom where to engage and where simply to observe with grace, you are not left behind. You are standing tall, rooted in something timeless. If this reflection resonates with you, I would love to know you're here. Please leave a comment with the number 6 below. Your presence adds meaning to this space. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and turn on the bell so we can continue walking these conversations together. Your voice and your heart matter here. Number 7. The emotional gap in how others treat your losses. There is a particular emotional gap that quietly opens as you move through your late 70s and deepens further into your 80s. It is the gap in how others respond, or often how they fail to respond, when you experience loss. Whether it's the passing of a beloved spouse, a dear sibling, or a lifelong friend, you may find that the sympathy you receive is brief, sometimes kind, but fleeting. A hug, a card, a polite, almost practiced, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And then, silence. The world, it seems, is eager to move on, even as you remain sitting with your grief, day after day. In earlier seasons of life, when someone dear passed away, there were rituals that honored the depth of sorrow. Friends gathered around your table. Phone calls came late into the evening. Meals were left at your door without needing to be asked. There was a collective acknowledgement that grief was not a moment but a journey. But now, as the circle of close friends grows smaller and the pace of society accelerates, grief often becomes an uncomfortable presence that many don't know how to sit with. People mean well, but they are busy. They want you to heal quickly, to smile soon, to reassure them that all is well, so they don't have to feel the helplessness of your pain. Wise older adults, however, come to understand a deeper truth. Grief has no timetable. It does not respect the schedules or expectations of others. It surfaces when you least expect it, in the aisle of a grocery store, in the quiet morning light, in the sudden ache when you hear a song or a laugh that once belonged to someone now gone. Grief is not something to be fixed. It is something to be honored. Ignoring it does not lessen its weight. If anything, it makes it heavier, a silent burden carried alone. The bravest act is not to hide your grief for the comfort of others, but to live with it openly, gently. To speak the names that others have stopped mentioning. To allow the tears to come even when no one else quite understands. Because grief, at its heart, is simply love with nowhere to go. There is no shame in carrying love forward. No shame in remembering, in aching, in continuing to feel the presence of someone who shaped your life. Wise elders create their own sacred spaces for remembrance. They pull out old photographs. They write letters to the departed. They light candles in quiet corners. They weave the stories of those they have lost into daily conversations, not just at funerals but around dinner tables, in gardens, on walks. And by doing so, they teach the world how to grieve, not with silence and shame, but with dignity, honesty, and full-hearted love. The emotional gap left by others is real, but you do not have to shrink yourself to fit into it. You can expand your own emotional presence, standing tall in your remembrance. And in doing so, you become a quiet light, a guide for those who one day will also need to find their way through the tender terrain of loss. Number 8. The growing gap in daily pace and urgency. One of the most striking changes that emerges in our late 70s and deepens into our 80s is the difference in pace. The rhythm by which we move through the world compared to everyone else. And once you begin to notice it, you see it everywhere. People walk faster, talk faster. They finish your sentences before you have time to find your words. The cashier at the grocery store taps impatiently. The doctor glances at the clock more than into your eyes. Conversations feel like you're trying to jump onto a train that has already left the station. This shift is not just physical, it's deeply psychological. As we age, our internal rhythms naturally slow, not because we are broken but because we have learned the value of thoughtful living. We savor pauses. We treasure the fullness of a moment rather than rushing past it. But the world around us moves faster every day. Devices chirp for attention. Notifications blink endlessly. People text instead of talk. And everything seems to demand immediate responses, measured in seconds, not in stories. And so, a friction arises, not because you can't keep up, but because you begin to wonder if it's a race worth running at all. You notice that what once took an hour now takes half the day. And you know what? That's not a flaw. It's a reflection of a different season of life, one that deserves to be honored, not hurried. Yet to many younger eyes, this natural change can be misread, as forgetfulness, as inefficiency, as somehow falling behind. Even when no words are spoken, the weight of those assumptions can chip quietly away at your confidence. But here's the deeper wisdom. slowing down isn't a sign of failure. It's a quiet triumph. It's an act of choosing depth over speed, meaning over momentum. When you slow down, you see more clearly. You feel more fully. You live more deliberately. Consider Robert, 79, who once rushed through mornings fueled by coffee and urgency. Now he sits by the window each morning, coffee in hand, watching the sunlight shift through the trees. He says, "Those quiet 30 minutes give me more peace than any meeting I ever raced to in my 40s. That kind of peace only arrives when we step outside the storm of urgency and choose, instead, to be present. When you honor the new pace that life offers you, you stop measuring your days against someone else's clock. You start planning based on meaning, not momentum. You seek the company of people who respect your rhythm. You allow your spirit to breathe. Yes, the pace of the world will continue to rush ahead. But within the space you claim, there is a hidden power, the power to step back, to slow down, and to move through time not with haste but with grace. You are not falling behind. You are walking through life with a depth, a purpose, and a peace that the world desperately needs but often forgets to seek. Final thoughts. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly. This video was never meant to be just a list of gaps, but rather a mirror, reflecting parts of your own experience, your quiet questions, your unspoken wisdom. These 8 spaces that open up with age are not signs of weakness or loss. They are thresholds, moments of becoming, invitations to live more gently, more honestly, more fully. You are not alone in what you're feeling. In fact, the very things that may seem invisible to others, the slowness, the silence, the shifts, are shared by many quietly, tenderly, just like you. But here's the most important truth. You are still becoming. You still matter. Your presence, your perspective, your heart, it all still has a place in this world. Let these later years be a time not of fading but of deepening, not of retreat but of quiet radiance. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave a comment below. Just share the number of the gap that spoke to you most, or write a few words if you feel comfortable. Your voice may be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if you haven't yet, I warmly invite you to subscribe and turn on the bell, so you won't miss future reflections like this. This space is here for you, a place of calm, connection, and meaning. From my heart to yours, thank you for being here. We'll see each other again soon.